get my 6. What's up, everybody? Excuse me. Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading. It has to do with other things. Potentially. You'll have to excuse me if I have to go off camera here and there to cough or blow some snot rockets. It's a combination of pollen. I would say it's spring, but we don't really have spring in Virginia. We have a 3-month period where 1 minute it's winter and the next minute it's summer, or at least that's been the case as of recent. But the flowers are beautiful and you can hear the birds. We get all that stuff. It's just the temperatures fluctuate a lot, especially as was the case in that live stream I did last night. Don't know if you caught it or not. Was I live stream? No, that was on the Facebook live stream on Sick Twisted Humor. I actually took the lantern and went out walking around in the yard and felt the temperature drop by 10 degrees, which is signs of paranormal events, or of paranormal presence. So yeah, there's that. But how about these most recent videos? How about these most recent potential Bigfoot Sasquatch captures on video? So just within the last week, 2 that were distinctly visible. So anyway, that's not really what I'm here to talk about today. I usually make these videos in the evening. It is still morning. As of this recording, it's like 9 a.m. I wanted to come out and do the video early today because we do have a heavy fog, as you can see. And there's been times in the past when him, her, it, or they have attempted to take advantage of such natural phenomena as a form of cover to try to sneak in even closer and listen to these stories. So, but there is a story here, and it's I had a big aha moment, and I wanted to share it with you. So I've been up since 5-ish. That's typically when I get up. And I pride myself on getting more work done by 10 a.m. than most people do in their entire day, from having an early start, being a morning person. And then after that, I can just kind of slow the pace and be done really if I want. And that's typically what I do. And I'll exercise, spend time with my family. Yesterday, we went catfishing. Did you see that video? The video just before this one, we caught it was the biggest blue cat I've ever caught in my life. I'd say it was at least 25 pounds, but it was probably 30. Just an hour before we went fishing, I'd been working out with 25-pound dumbbells. That fish was heavier than those dumbbells. So what a capture. But so let's get to it. And again, you watch back here. Watch very closely. Those who have been following the channel for years know to listen to me, but watch really what's going on behind me. So I'm working on a couple of projects, a couple of literary projects. Thank you to everybody who's been submitting your personal experiences of anything related to the paranormal, supernatural, cryptid, UFOs, aliens, to the email address, which is in the description box. It's crazylake@mail.com. It does appear as if we're going to have True Hauntings Volume 5 out probably within a month to 6 weeks. Certainly weeks, not months, as in plural. If you've got a story, go ahead and submit it. Those are really piling up, so I'm back to work on editing those. Erie's doing most of it. But there's another book, and I don't want to be too specific with this yet, that I've been working on for 3 years. It was supposed to be out before this past Christmas. It was supposed to be out before the Christmas before that, but it wasn't. Because I'm challenged here, and I'm gonna show you what has challenged me. You know, every time, if you're an artist, let's say you're a painter, you want each painting to be better than the last. If you're a writer, you want each book to be better than the last. If you're an athlete, you want each performance to be better than the last. You want to get a little bit better every time, right? Well, that's my challenge, and that's why I'm being very self-critical with this project I'm working on that I hope to have finished this year. Because this set the benchmark. Many of you have read this, The Lunatic, a novel by Kevin Lake, me, Listen, if you haven't read it, it is available on Amazon in both print and Kindle if you prefer e-reading. And we still have maybe, I don't know, a dozen or so print copies here that if you purchase from our Etsy store, the link of which is in the description box below, I will personally autograph the inner part of it here for you and send it to you with a really cool bookmark. Now, with that shameless self-promotion aside, here's why it's so difficult, because this story is so realistic. Now, it's fiction based on fact, the facts being the modern times in which we live in U.S. society particularly, but also most of Europe now, especially England. And what is so terrifying is that if you read this book and then you stop to think about it for just a minute, you'll realize there's someone in your life close to you who is frighteningly close in personality, behavior, thought processes to the main character in this book, which, as we know, is a lunatic, and which, you know, I don't want to give any spoilers. Listen, mayhem, death, carnage. And for those of you who love Halloween and all things paranormal, it climaxes on Halloween night. So we spent our winter in the Philippines, right? We were over there for 5 months. Now, I have my likes and my dislikes about pretty much everywhere. I've got my likes and my dislikes about here. And this place is heaven on earth to me. This is home. You know, people ask, when we were in the Philippines, people would often ask, do you plan to retire and live in the Philippines full time at some point? And I'd say, oh God, no. And they would kind of take that as an insult. And then they'd say, why? And they'd want to know, because there's this fantasy that it's like everybody's fantasy to just retire and go live somewhere else. And I'd tell them, I'd say, look, it's nothing against the Philippines per se. It's just I love the life we have in Virginia. I love our property. And I'd tell them, you know, they go by hectares there, not acres. We have 2.75 hectares. It's like 2.5 acres makes 1 hectare. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The air is clean. I mean, we're hearing geese right now and a blue jay screaming at the geese. And then I just saw a hawk go over. Deer, rabbits, squirrels, pond full of fish. Within a 15-minute drive of catching monster catfish like the one you saw yesterday. We're not overpopulated when we do go into town. People here do have common courtesies for the most part, and it's not as nice as it once was. But there's just so many good things about this place, and so I tell them it's my plan to pretty much live the way we currently do, go back and forth. When we want to break from this, we'll go over there for a few months, but then we're always going to come home. And a lot of people just don't get it. And I think it's a combination of two things. There's a lot of people haven't found their heaven on earth yet, like we have. And then number two, a lot of it is nationalism. You know, that's something, and that's going to bring me back to this story. There's so much that's hypocritical about U.S. culture, and nationalism is one of them. You can watch legacy media outlets, and they'll be covering maybe a festival on a remote island in Southeast Asia or off the northern horn of Africa. And they'll show the indigenous people, and they'll show their unique culture. And you'll hear the broadcasters say, look at how proud these people are to be, and then fill in the blank, whatever their nationality is. And they'll say, isn't that wonderful? They're so poor. And this is true of the Philippines for the majority of the people. It's feudalism. They don't have a middle class. You're either super, super rich in the Philippines, and that's a very small percentage, or you're third world poor. They'll say, despite having nothing, they have happiness. Look, they're with their family. And I've said these things, and these things are true, okay? But then when they say they are so proud to be Filipino or Filipina, they're so proud to be Indonesian, isn't that honorable? It's just, that's something to strive for. Well, here's the problem. When you say you're proud to be an American, you're called a nationalist, and it's nasty and it's ugly. But when folks in other countries are nationalistic, it's something to strive for. Do you understand the hypocrisy in that? And so that's why a lot of times, even my Filipino relatives who I'm like this with over in the Philippines, they can't understand why I just don't want to retire and live there full time, because by God, that's the Philippines and that's the greatest country on earth because they were born there. But yet we're not allowed to do it because we're called all these mean, nasty things. So here's the deal. This book is so terrifying because there's a lot of you watch movies. Have you seen the movie Creep? My wife, Dearly, and I, Giggly Girl, saw... Did you hear that tree knock? Keep getting my 6. That was a loud, thunderous tree knock. I think he was saying, or she, or it was saying, get on with the story. So, forget the actor's name. I think the movie was actually from 2014 or 2015. It was the first time we'd seen it. And there's been 2 sequels to it. There's a part 2 and a part 3. We watched that movie, and at times we laughed because the guy kind of reminded us of... You hear that loud, thunderous tree knock? No mistaking it that time. We're not alone. As I was saying, the guy, the main character, he kind of reminded us of me in some of my videos when I get all goofy and a little creepy, according to some of the commenters. But the actual scariest part was that there's so many people like him. It turns out, similar to the lunatic in this book, the guy was a sociopath who had actually crossed the line and snapped. He was really more of a psychopath, as this guy ends up being. You see these sociopaths, and even that term, just in the last few years, has been replaced. And I found that out when I was doing the research for this book, because it was offensive. That's here in U.S. culture. It was offensive to refer to somebody with sociopathic tendencies as a sociopath. So what is the new current warm, fuzzy, feel-good name? I think it's antisocial personality disorder or something like that. It's crazy because what these terms do, and what this concept of trying to take the sting out of all things painful, is that it disarms potential victims. Okay? There's this thing called a gut instinct. As animals, we're all born with it. But in U.S. culture, we're told it's a bad thing. Don't listen to your gut, because if you're listening to your gut instincts, you're judging somebody. And you should never do that. Okay? I hear footsteps now. 2 tree knocks. The first one distant, the second one much closer, and now I'm hearing footsteps. Okay, listen, when I was in the Army, I had to relearn to listen to my gut instincts, because that kept me alive in Iraq. And then over the 6 or 7 years off and on, sometimes many years straight, that I spent in the Philippines, that gut instinct and listening to it kept me safe there too. Not just physically, but financially. It kept me from being scammed and ripped off by smiling, happy people with the most beautiful smiles and the most seemingly wonderful intentions. But the gut said, no. So here's the problem with it. In current U.S. culture, we have 2 things that have been combined, which has become very dangerous. This is delusionalness, delusionalment, however you would say, people who are delusional, combined with entitlement. So, this whole concept of, it used to be said, the truth is what I say it is, which typically meant the person with the most power won. You know, let's say an event happens. There are many different sides of the story. There are many different facts. However, the truth is what I say it is. Wasn't that a line from Jack Nicholson? He was a high-ranking military officer. Hey, the person that outranked everybody else, the truth was what they said it was. Okay, the person with the most money, the person with the most power. We see this still today with a lot of overzealous prosecutors who are not out to say there's an alleged crime and they come up with an alleged alleged perpetrator, somebody who's been accused. It's not a prosecutor's job to find out the truth, whether or not that person did it. If it actually comes to there's a court date, there's a hearing, and this suspect that's been accused and has now been charged, if they're in that defense chair, it's that prosecutor's job to send that person to prison or to get a conviction, even if the judge decides to go with probation. Perhaps it's a first offender. But I had a lawyer tell me once, we have a legal system. We don't have a justice system. And I said, well, why do you say it like that? And he says, because there's no justice. There's just law. So it's a prosecutor's job to send that individual in the defense chair to jail, not find out whether or not they really did commit the crime. And if the prosecutor does that successfully enough, the prosecutor will more than likely be reelected at the next election. And that's just facts. Okay, so in that case, I state that case because the truth is what the prosecutor says. When the defendant is from lower socioeconomic means, doesn't have money to pay a good attorney, and is stuck with a public defender. Listen, public defenders are public defenders because everybody's paid what they're worth in reality, especially in the business world. If you're worth your weight in salt and beans, you're going to be with a firm. And you might be at the bottom at the beginning. You might take a while to work your way up. But if you're good, you're eventually going to be a partner, or you start your own firm. If you're a public defender, listen, I fear for anybody who goes to court who's defended by a public offender. So, but here's how this has evolved to this point now. With the a lot of people refer to it as the woke agenda. Now there's this concept of my truth. Well, my truth is this. So you might have a situation where 15 people were involved, and today everybody gets their truth. They'll get to tell their truth. This is my truth. Well, my truth is this. My truth. No. That's your side of the story. Listen, truth is truth. Facts are facts, neither of which care about your feelings. Okay, and now for me to even come on here and say that, I take a big risk of the security of this YouTube channel because I'm on a social media platform which has these little things called bots, artificial intelligence, screening statements like the one I just made to try to get rid of people like me because I'm the new poster boy bad guy. Yeah. Post middle-aged rural white male. I live in the South, and I just said what I said. I risk being canceled right now, despite the fact my wife's Asian, my son's biracial, some of my best friends are gay. I hate no one for any reason, particularly based upon skin color, ethnicity, nationality, sexual preference, gender identification, none of that. But we are living in dangerous times in which everybody gets to have their own truth. So if the wrong person decides that their truth is that I am all these evil, terrible, nasty, bad things, then by God, I've been convicted. The prosecutor wasn't even needed. Folks, that's the thesis and the premise of this novel. And I'm telling you, if you have not read it, you are missing out on one of the greatest aha moments of your life. The crazy society in which we live here in the U.S., the crazy society in which people in other countries ask me about when I meet, foreign nationalists in the Philippines. I've hung out with a lot of Europeans, a lot of Filipinos, and they're like, why are you guys, and then fill in the blank. And I'm like, I don't know. We've lost our minds. I kind of think I know the answer. When we're in the Philippines, and we do look around, and we see how there's so many people with so little, yet they're happy, they're joyful. They're not just happy, they're full of joy. There's a difference. Happiness is an emotion you feel based upon the conditions of the outcome of something. Say if your favorite team, if you're a North Carolina State fan, right now you're happy as of this recording because they beat Duke to advance to the Final Four. If you're a Duke fan, you're not happy right now. But neither of those has to do with joy. You can be unhappy but still be joyful, and you can be happy and not know joy. Joy is kind of like a permanent state of being, of being at peace with life, having no anger, no bitterness, no hatred in your heart, harboring none of that stuff, being content, being able to appreciate the simple things like the blossoms on the cherry trees, the apple trees is what they call spring, the beautiful sound of the birds singing. You've got to really be in a state of joy to appreciate the small, simple things. So we'll look around and it's like, look at these folks have so little, but they're so happy. And then we'll have this conversation, my wife and I, and some of my friends over there. Why are so many people in the U.S. so angry, so bitter? They have everything. Everything. I mean, if there's 2 drivers per household, they'll typically have 3 or 4 cars. If there's 3 or 4 people living in a house, they'll typically have a 5,000 square foot house. There's so much food in the kitchens and the pantries that a lot of it, a very large percentage of it, ends up being thrown out because it spoils before it can be eaten. Yet they're angry. Why? It wasn't like this when I left the country. Even to go fight in war in Iraq in 2008, it wasn't like this. And I honestly believe the answer is we have gotten to a point to where we have combined disillusionment with entitlement, and it's a dangerous combination. So, for example, in this book, The Lunatic, I'm trying not to give too many spoilers. And this book predicted the future. There's been several events. And I'm going to have to talk in code here. Let's say I want to identify as a purple unicorn with a pink horn. Okay, that's my truth in this hypothetical situation. I am a purple unicorn with a pink horn. Okay, I live in a society that will allow me to do that, as disillusioned as I might be, because I clearly am not a purple unicorn with a pink horn. Okay, now I'm also entitled. Okay, I am entitled, especially since I belong to a certain group that identifies as purple unicorns with pink horns. So I am entitled to be referred to as such. What is a good term for horses? Equestrians. So I want you to refer to me as Equestriano, okay? Because that's how I identify. Let's say the delivery guy comes to my house with takeout Chinese food, knocks on the door, and I answer the door. And let's say I've gone as far as to actually wear a purple unicorn outfit, and I've got this really pink fuzzy horn I've got attached to my head, and I open the door, and that delivery guy says, "Oh, good afternoon, sir. Did you order Chinese takeout?" Well, at that point, I just lose my crap. I'm like, "What did you call me?" And the delivery guy's confused. He's like, "I didn't call you anything, sir. I just asked if..." "What did you call me? I am Equestriano." And then the delivery guy says, "Okay, sir, I didn't know your name. Mr. Equestriano, what did you call me?" Okay, so now my truth being that I'm a purple unicorn with a pink horn, and my truth being that anybody who doesn't buy into my disillusionment is a bigot, well, I'm now being attacked. I'm being attacked by a bigot who's referred to me as sir, mister. Now, I can even go as far as to say this person's being passive-aggressive because they called me Mr. Equestriano. That's a passive-aggressive insult. They're trying to edge me on. Well, let's say it just continues and it keeps going on, and I decide this guy just puts the food down and takes off, and I decide at this point he's teasing me. And I get so irate, I forgot to tell you that underneath this fuzzy pink unicorn, there's actually like my sword, the sword that my Filipino grandfather's great Spanish grandfather gave him, that he gave Daniel for Christmas this past Christmas. I take it out of that sheath that looks like a pink unicorn horn, or a purple unicorn with a pink horn, and I chase that guy down to my gate. He's got to stop to get out of the gate, and I dispatch him, and you know what that means. I make it to where this was his last day on earth. Well, I was entitled to do that because he attacked me. He was a bigot. Let's say this guy was 45 and was Caucasian and he lived out in the country somewhere. Hey, that's public enemy number one. It was self-defense. Well, guess what the facts are? Guess what the truth is? It's not my truth. It's the truth that I just committed murder. I just killed an innocent guy that was out there delivering Chinese food because that was his job. And he was unaware of my delusionment, in which in my world I've chosen to be a purple unicorn with a pink horn. But he should have known. By God, he should have known. So it was self-defense, right? Wrong. I'm probably going to go to prison for the rest of my life. That's just, folks, these are perhaps the most terrifying times we have ever lived in. In the land of milk and honey, where if you are hungry, if you do want, there are government programs in place to fill your belly. Between here and where we go to my son's football practice every week, we pass 2 church pantries that will give anybody in this area food to eat if they're hungry and they don't have money to buy food. And those are just the 2 that are on the way. If I drive around Charlottesville, there's a lot more than that. And this is just one community, which is an example out of many across the country. So people who, such as our relatives and friends in the Philippines, if they don't work, they don't eat. They don't get government subsistence, and they don't have food pantries. Now, there's a few here, there, and there, mostly foreign missionaries that go there to help. They starve. But they live in reality. They know that a guy in a purple unicorn outfit with a pink horn in his head is a guy in a purple outfit with a pink unicorn, with a pink horn on their head. And they're not going to get angry if that person in that costume won't get angry if they're referred to as anything other than what they truly are, because they're not disillusioned either. So you combine that disillusionment with entitlement, and we've got people literally killing other people because the people they kill just don't know there's this fantasy world they are living in, because by appearances, they're seeing what's real. They're seeing the truth of the matter. They're not seeing what that individual calls their truth, because truth is truth and facts are facts, and neither care about your feelings. So folks, if you haven't read it, you can get it on Amazon in print or Kindle. There's a lot of foul language. There's adult situations, adult themes, because this addresses the terrifying reality in which we live. If you want an autographed copy, there's a few left in our Etsy store. The link is in the description box also. Be careful out there, folks. Stay safe. See you for more next time.